Hey, welcome to this mini lecture on Paulo Freire and the Promise of Critical Pedagogy by Henry Giroux. Part 2 talks about Freire's thoughts. Here's a quote. What Paulo made Freire clear in Pedagogy the Press, his most well-known book, is that pedagogy at its best is about neither training, teaching methods, nor political indoctrination. For Freire, pedagogy is not a method or an a priori technique to be imposed on all students, but a political and moral practice that provides the knowledge, skills, and social relations that enable students to explore the possibilities of what it means to be critical citizens while expanding and deepening their participation in the promise of substantive democracy. From this, I'd ask you, how is pedagogy a political and moral practice? You might want to pause there and think about it. I'd say that, when you make a pedagogical decision, your values, which manifest themselves politically and morally, are manifest in what you choose. So just almost anything you do is grounded in some kind of political background, or definitely moral background. Another long quote. Critical thinking for Freire was not an object lesson in test taking, but a tool for self-determination and civic engagement. According to Freire, critical thinking was not about the task of simply reproducing the past and understanding the present. To the contrary, it was about offering a way of thinking beyond the present, soaring beyond the immediate confines of one's experiences, entering into a critical dialogue with history, and imagining a future that would not merely reproduce the present. To ask you to pause, maybe think through this if you have any thoughts. The question would be, should we engage in a critical dialogue with history and imagine a future? If so, how? Again, you could pause. I'd say, in terms of this, when we're teaching things, we need to recognize the long trajectory of human existence and human thought and education. And we need to, if we want to have our pedagogy helping society and making things better for us and our students, we need to think about our past and see how that can fold into a better future. Another quote, rather than assume the mantle of a false impartiality, Freire believed that critical pedagogy involved both the recognition that human life is conditioned, not determined, and the crucial necessity of not only reading the world critically, but also intervening in the larger social order as part of the responsibility of an informed citizenry. You might want to pause, see what you think about that. Here are a couple questions for you. How do we read the world critically? Question 2, how do we create an informed citizenry? Again, you might want to pause and think about that. Freire is very into the idea of, when he worked with peasants and poor people that were illiterate, he would have them try to interrogate the world around them. And so he'd take that, when he's teaching literacy, the world as being a text they would read. So when they couldn't read text, they could read the world. And ideally, for question 2, we create an informed citizenry by making people who can, in Freire's case, definitely learn literacy so they can learn on their own, but also help them foster critical engagement with the world and whatever materials they're doing in their educational setting. Another quote, Freire rejected those modes of pedagogy that supported economic models and modes of agency in which freedom is reduced to consumerism and economic activity is freed from any criterion except probability and the reproduction of a rapidly expanding mass of wasted humans. I want to pause, see what you think about that. I'd ask you this. What do you think of is the meaning of wasted humans? Again, you might want to pause. I would say from Freire's perspective, a wasted human would be someone who did not learn literacy like he taught people and that did not critically engage with their environments. I think he would think that as being a waste, in terms of not so much like he's being judgmental, it's more like they have all this potential that's not being realized, so it's a waste of that potential. This quote, critical pedagogy attempts to understand how power works through the production, distribution, and consumption of knowledge within particular institutional contexts and seeks to constitute students as informed subjects and social agents. I want to pause, think about what you think about that. Here's a direct question. What is the meaning of power works through the production, distribution, and consumption of knowledge? What do you think about that? I would say that what the quote means is that we exercise governmental power, institutional power, the power of society through the types of knowledge that we produce, that we distribute and consume. That's the most common language like our language is built on our own knowledge, and by producing, distributing, and consuming it, it inherently reflects on power. That was Paulo Freire and the Promise of Critical Pedagogy by Henry Giroux. Part 2, Freire's thoughts. Thanks for watching. I look forward to seeing you again soon. Take care.